Right, good evening everybody. Welcome to the Cabinet meeting, 9th of July, Colchester City Council. We'll do the usual opening remarks, so the first of which, beyond that, welcome to the public, visiting councillors as well as the Cabinet colleagues, is a reminder that if there is an emergency, follow us, right? There's no practice alarms expected, but we'll evacuate the town hall down the main staircase or the back staircase to the High Street, then to the car park behind the town hall. This meeting is being streamed live over the internet on the council's YouTube channel and will be available to listen to afterwards, and I know that colleagues would just love to do that. Use of mobile phones and devices, including cameras, welcome, but please use them discreetly, not to disturb the meeting, set them to silent, or try not to use voice or camera flash. Can we make sure we use microphones at all times? Let me just now introduce the work of the Cabinet. We are the main executive body of the council, responsible for day-to-day decision-making on all services, and we make recommendations to full council, major policy issues, and on the council's budget. Cabinet's made up of 8 councillors, each of whom is responsible for a particular range of services. So, having done all of that, let me introduce myself and I'll go around the table, starting at the right-hand side. So my name is David King, leader of the council, and I'll go to Philip Sullivan, the far end.
Good evening, Philip Sullivan, Chief Executive of Colchester Borough Homes and Strategic Lead for Housing for the City Council.
Councillor Chris Pearson, Cabinet Member with responsibility for economic growth and transformation.
Martin Goss, I'm a Mile End Ward Councillor and I'm the Cabinet Member for Waste, Neighbourhoods and Leisure Services.
Good evening, Councillor Mark Corey, Portfolio Holder for Assets and Resources and Ward Member for Wivenhoe.
Councillor Lee Scaldis, Cabinet Member for Culture, Heritage and the Environment.
Councillor Julie Young, Deputy Leader of the Council and Portfolio Holder for Housing. Pam Donnelly, Chief Executive.
Andrew Weavers, Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer.
Richard Clifford, Democratic Services Manager.
Good evening, Anna D'Alessandro, Interim Chief Finance Officer in Section 15.
Jocelyn Law, Highwoods Ward Councillor and Cabinet Member for Communities and Public Protection.
Good evening, Councillor Angela Loxford, Ward Member for Wivenhoe and Port.
Thank you, all of you, the deaf amongst us, Andrea. All right, okay, item 2, urgent items. We've got a request for a delegated authority to agree the award of contract for Microsoft licensing. I've agreed to take this report as an urgent item, and the reasons for the urgency it should be plain that we need this to happen, which is why in timely fashion as the current contract expires on this 30th of September 25. Now the paper has been circulated as part of the supplementary agenda, and we'll take it therefore as we're on the item now. Over to yourself, Chris Pearson. Chris, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I became aware of this last week and signed off the document that's come before you this evening at the end of the week, having asked 1 or 2 questions. I think it's slightly unfortunate that it's come this late in the day, but nevertheless absolutely crucial that we do go forward and the contract is signed and we don't have time for it to come back to Cabinet in the interim.
Thank you, Chris. And look, let's, Chris, I just ask, is there anything else you'd want to say beyond that? The paper sets out the background here. Would you like to talk to that?
No, I think the only other thing I would say is that I'm aware from my early discussions with our IT team that we want to do some work on updating our IT systems, and in particular the council's website. And I think this will be a platform and a foundation for that to go forward.
Thank you. It's a for us significant sum of money, but it's absolutely a crucial service. Any questions or comments from other members of Cabinet? Martin.
No, there's nothing to worry about here. This is just standard. All organisations have to go through this to contract with Microsoft, and it's standard business practice. You know, I've been through it myself in the commercial sector, so I've got no worries about it. I think it's absolutely fine.
Okay, thank you. So the request is the recommendations delegate the authority to award the contract to the portfolio holder, to Councillor Pearson, in consultation with the Chief Operating Officer. Are we agreed?
Great.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Chris. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any items on the agenda about which you have a disclosable interest?
There's no indications, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. In which case we're to item 4, minutes of the previous meeting. I can remember the fun of it all. Are they judged a correct record? Agreed. Okay. Item 5, have your say. We have no general have your say, as I understand it. Is that right?
That's correct, Chair.
Okay. In which case we get into items 6.
There are no items under item
Thank
6,
you.
Chair.
That's decisions reviewed by the scrutiny panel. Scrutiny, of course, did meet last session. In which case we go on to housing, and we have 2 visiting councillors, Councillor Paul Dundas and Councillor William Sonics. So perhaps come up, Paul, in turn. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, it appears the microphone isn't working. It's not coming through on the audio.
I'd love to see caring and sharing.
It's still not coming.
Well, there's a very pretty light on it. It's what you always wanted, Paul. No, I want to be the Soviet.
Is that working? That's better. We can hear that one now. Those 2 don't seem to be working. Yeah, I originally scribbled down this afternoon that it's taken 2 years to get here, but when I actually looked it up, I think it was September 22. The process was started. So I do hope you will take on board the comments which I think were made by the scrutiny panel last night, and actually I think they passed a resolution regarding it, that it does feel that having taken a very, very long time on this, having got to the end, it does seem to be that we've kind of like quickly gone hell for leather and rushed it through scrutiny, and then to have the cabinet meeting less than 24 hours after the scrutiny meeting concludes rather implies an assumption that the scrutiny panel weren't actually going to make any huge changes or recommendations, because if they had, he wouldn't have had very long to consider them. And I think it, dare I say it, it shows a little bit of disrespect to the scrutiny panel. And I think that perhaps on something like this, we need to think a little bit about the timing in future, because you didn't know what they were going to say or do. And I think it's important that you delve into what you're being asked to approve this evening actually means. You know, it does massively increase our debt, for good or bad, and I appreciate there's lots of arguments, but it does, and you need to realise that that is the case. It does potentially reduce the standard of service offered to our customers, and they are our customers in many areas, and it does raise rents by more than the cost of living. I'm sure the argument may be made that many tenants do not pay their rent directly, and I think that's probably true. The figures are in the papers, but it still leaves only over 1/3 who do pay directly out of their own pocket, and for them they will see an increase above the cost of living. And I can't help but think that for a council which has talked a lot about a cost of living crisis over the last few years, it isn't perhaps the best look, let's just put it that way. And I'll ask you to listen to what I suspect Councillor Sonics will say about accounting treatments. And, you know, I know it's boring, but you can manipulate all sorts of numbers in all sorts of big ways and get it wrong with revenue, capital and depreciation. Believe me, I learned how to do it in my early 20s, and on occasion I've even been paid to do it, so I know what can be done. And you'll probably say, yes, we have checked and they are correct. But of course, we have no independent verification they are correct because we haven't had any external scrutiny via an audit for 4 years, soon to be 5 years. And I could actually see, I was watching last night's video, that Savills were actually quite shocked about that. I don't think they were aware of it, looking at the expressions on their faces. So, in summary, I do hope councillors on scrutiny and G&A who have asked for more information on how the numbers are arrived at, get the information, and we don't end up in a situation where people have to start putting in FOIs and things. Detailed scrutiny is what we're meant to be doing. If we don't, we have to ask the question, what is the point of us? We may as well get rid of councillors and just let the officers get on with it without question. I thought about whether to say that because it seems in some quarters maybe the government quite like that idea. I don't know. Perhaps we should get rid of MPs as well. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you know, look at the numbers, look at the detail. I know sometimes you think people are just being awkward. They're not. They're trying to actually point you in where they think you need to be looking to understand the decisions you're taking. And we have seen in council after council around the country that it's very easy for councillors to take decisions and then wish they hadn't a year or two down the line because perhaps they didn't fully understand the implications. So all I'm saying is please listen and please be sure that you know what the decision you're taking is. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Let me stay there, and let me, if I might, to help my colleagues address some of these points, and then if Julie or others would want to elaborate, I think I might want to come to Anna on the challenge to the viability of our numbers, and if necessary, I mean this makes it a bit interactive, but we're going to go there anyway because we're thoughtful people, which is really the heart of your point. We should be thoughtful, and we are. So, look. The timing point, we'll say this when we get to, I'm going to say it again twice. So we absolutely get, this is not ideal to have scrutiny one day and then cabinet meet the next. It's not for us. It's not for anybody. Points taken. As this happened a few times in my experience, and there's something about us collectively managing our business. That does include also the demands from committees on officers and on us all in terms of timing and availability. So there is a challenge there, but we've got to do better. There should be a gap. In my view, it should be at least sensibly a week. So there's some chance for digestion. It gives us a chance to talk offline as well. So timing understood. Debt and viability, look, you know, the latter is the word that matters most. Debt for a purpose, borrowing for a purpose is entirely acceptable. I'll ask a view from Anna about that, and if necessary, we'll go to Julia. Adding costs in the cost of living crisis, well, the reality is, of course, this is an adjustment that acknowledges that we have reduced the costs, government direction, over a number of years, and we've laid a stress and a strain upon the HRA, which I think your neutral self would acknowledge is not been good for the bottom line. That's caused some of the challenges to which you've referred, including our requirement to have to look with real care at the standards that have been set. The Decent Homes Plus is still better than many, I have to say. Whether it's going to pre-proof to the challenges that can come downstream as government changes upward the standard, we're going to have to go and see. So we're all aware, aren't we, that this is a very tight bargain. It's a bargain between a set of trades, between the needs of people in different ways. But fundamentally, to have a good home to a decent standard is still what we're promising. And I think it's important that we ensure that we don't lose sight of how valuable that is for thousands of people, that they can turn to the council, despite the huge waiting list, a real prospect of being looked after. And that's not true for all, it's not true for everyone. It is true in Colchester, and we should have some collective pride on that. So I'm going to stop it there. Can I ask Anna for a view from you on the issue of the viability, please? Thank you.
So I had quite a lengthy session with Philip and Savills, and Julia took me through the process they went through and the extent of the consultation they went through and all of the detail of all the numbers that were put into this review. And I came at it not being an HR expert, but somebody who does budgets and has done big budgets in my time, and looked at the kind of the thought process and what was done as part of this review, and felt comfortable that things were thought of. Things that I thought were important is the regular review, which is what we always do when we set budgets. So looking at the underlying model, looking at the assumptions, stress testing the assumptions, looking at the having to manage it tightly, and doing some of that work, and constantly coming back and doing those reviews, increasing the minimum level of the reserves that are set for the HRA, which we have done, and we did at outturn. So using some kind of industry guidelines in terms of setting benchmarks. So some of those important things that I would look at when I set a budget, I felt comfortable were looked at as part of the HRA review. I think there's a lot of work that went in here, and it is difficult and it is tricky, but I think that it needs to be managed closely. And I got that assurance, and I felt assured as part of that review and part of the consultation and feedback that we did with Savills and with Philip and his team, that is the crux of what they will be doing, is managing this as closely as possibly they can.
I've got a Philip, I know you want to come in. I don't want us to have all our conversation from Paul, but I do want to address Paul. I hope we have done that honourably enough already, but Philip. Good to see you working together on this.
Thank you, and thanks, Paul. Really important points. Just in terms of the debts, I understand your point about increasing our debt, but without intervention, the debt in the existing business plan rises to £721 million. And in fact, the recommended business plan has a debt level £250 million less than that. In fact, it's slightly more than £250 million less than that. Another comment is that it's important, in my view, to look at the level of debt in the context of ability to service that debt, so the income to service that debt. And also, unlike the existing HRA business plan, the recommended business plan is able to service that debt, which means that we are recommending a sustainable 30-year business plan, not without the need to manage the risk, not without the need for having mitigations in place, but we are recommending a sustainable business plan.
Paul.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I find one of the things I've over the years tried to educate myself to understand the HRA, and I think, as Anna said, that it is a financial model and a set of accounting ways which is unlike anything you will find anywhere else, actually. And until you rush local government involvement in any format, I don't think anybody knows what an HRA is outside of this. So I think when we are, or certainly when I've been trying to ask for how it works and explanations as to how some things, particularly around how we capitalise things, how we treat capital and how we treat depreciation, a lot of it is I want to understand it and try and educate myself so I can reassure myself as to what we're doing. And I do understand the argument regarding debt, and I do get that to a certain extent we're between a rock and a hard place in that there is only so much money to go around. So you have some difficult compromises to make, and obviously that is a decision you will have to make tonight. And on that note, with my microphones, I shall go and open a new glorious tractor factory somewhere.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, William, please. Councillor Summers must give you your full title, sir. Come on up.
William will do fine. It might be me that Paul is referring to as awkward, and that's not my intention.
I'm glad to see competition for the title. We all share it sometimes.
It's not my intention. It is not my intention to be awkward, but I am wound up about this plan because we've been promised that so many issues, so many really important fundamental issues for the council would be addressed in it, and they just aren't. And we say, oh, it's reducing our debt. Well, yes, 30 years' time, maybe. I just think those numbers, well, we haven't seen the model. Look at the first 5 years. This increases our debt in the first 5 years. Previously in the budget, it was 101 million. It's now 163 million. Does anyone know this? Has anyone looked at the numbers? You know, are the numbers available? No, they're not. And we've asked for them. The chair of the scrutiny panel's asked for them. We need to see that model. We really need to see that model. And I find it really quite shocking that we as councillors are expected to take responsibility for this sort of level of capital spending without being able to see the model. I accept that some councillors don't want to see the model, and perhaps they're not interested. Perhaps they're happy just to rely on other people. But when I've scratched the surface here before, I found problems, and I think it's important we do find them. And I think that that model should be disclosed, and it's been asked by the chair of the scrutiny panel. We've been tried to be fobbed off with a presentation where it's put up on a screen. You can't look at a 30-year model on a screen in a presentation. It's just not possible. We just need that model. Just give it to us, and please stop sort of making excuses. It makes it feel as if it's a sort of game. It's not a game. This is serious amounts of public money, and we need to see what's going on. It's not idly that we want to see that model. I think that there are real problems with it. The big measure is interest cover, but the interest rate we're assuming is so optimistic compared to where the market's been for the last 2 years. It's not just a short-term market fluctuation. For a council like Colchester to be claiming to know better than the gilt market is, well, to me, it's just laughable. We need to have a proper interest rate assumption in it. The depreciation, if you look at the model, it appears that the depreciation, that the capital expenditure is being depreciated over about 233 years. And it turns out there's all sorts of funny journals going on, and MRRs and all sorts of things going on there. 4 years without accounts. I think there's something wrong. I'm putting that publicly. I think there's something wrong, and we need to look at it. And I think this is the opportunity to look at it. When I've raised it before, it was said it would be addressed. Costs. There's something wrong with our costs. And that we're told the benchmarking I've done from published accounts shows that we're out of line, we're too high. Savills say that we're in line, and I think what's happening is that they're looking at repairs plus management costs, whereas I'm just looking at management costs. And the reason why they're getting lower figures is because we're capitalising more repairs and then not depreciating them properly. There's something wrong. I think I've covered the accounting points. I think that the central point is this, that this is an important moment. It's taken 2 years to do. Wouldn't it be wise to sit down to get that model? And if you don't disclose it voluntarily, I will FOI it, because there can be no excuse. It's not proprietorial. It says it's not proprietorial in the plan, and there's no commercial confidentiality in it. So let's look at the model, sort it out, and make sure that we at least understand the problems before we flag through a plan. Thanks a lot, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, William. I'd like to ask, we've got Julia on the line, if she'd give a commentary, please. I think it's really, William, bear with me, don't want to rerun scrutiny from last night. I'm sure some of us would enjoy it, but it's not an appropriate use of time really at this point about decisions. But I do take seriously, and all of us do, the views of any member, and particularly one who is as committed as I know you are to getting the best out of the organisation. I know you take it very personally. You invest a lot of time. I do start from a slightly different position, the conversation philosophically we've had before, which is I start with trust until I see evidence to the contrary. I start with trust also of the best of our officers, the length of time it's taken to get to this point. If you'd asked me 2 or 3 years ago I'll be frank with you, I didn't have confidence in what I was seeing. I think this is a good quality piece of work, but let me stop the commentary from me. I just asked for a bit of clarification from Julia and perhaps from Anna, and then I'll see if members would like on the facts to just close this down, because then we should go back to our own conversation. So, Julia, could I go to you and ask you, if you could, just to pick up on a couple of the points, including the earlier one from Councillor Dundas, which is, Paul probably didn't mean to, as it sounded, or perhaps he did, about manipulating the accounting treatment. We need to be really clear for the public record that there is nothing funny here, which implies something, it could imply something dishonest. And I want to address that first of all before we go around the rest of the remarks. So, Julia, could you come in, and then I should go to you, Anna?
Yeah, thank you. I think we need to divorce two things here. So the business plan is a separate activity to the council's statement of accounts. The way that depreciation is dealt with, as my colleague explained last night at scrutiny, is unique and very different for the housing revenue account compared to the general fund and compared to the private sector. So there is a very, very different approach under the legislation and the regulations for the treatment of depreciation. And I can't comment on how depreciation is accounted for in the council statement of accounts, because that's not the piece of work that Savills have undertaken. What I can say is that we deal with depreciation in line with the HRA rules in the business plan financial model that we've used that supports the work that's brought the business plan forward this morning, where we look at depreciation on a basis where it's calculated a reduced value on the asset. So you don't depreciate the full value of an asset, you depreciate it at a value called social housing existing use value, which recognises that the asset is valued at about 38% of the full value, recognising it has a secure tenant in there with an affordable or a social rent in perpetuity. And depreciation is built through the model on that basis going forward. It won't be the same basis as is dealt with in the accounts directly. And as I say, I can't comment on that because I've not looked at the way depreciation is dealt with in the council's accounts. Some of the other questions that were raised and points that were raised, yes, this plan does have significant borrowing in it. The borrowing is reduced by us having reduced the level of investment to the Decent Homes Plus standard. It would be higher if we continued with the currently approved standard. The just-in-time standard would mean that the borrowing in the plan would be higher going forward than it is under the proposed business plan. The 163 million of borrowing in the first 5 years of the plan, it's probably important to note that 70% of that relates to the delivery of new homes. And in the delivery of much needed new homes, there is obviously additional rental income that will come in from those new homes to support the borrowing. So the borrowing is not done without thought and without reason for, why it's in the plan, and with the clear demonstrable position that that borrowing is affordable and supportable within the plan. The interest rate point that was raised, and again, we did discuss this at scrutiny last night, the 4.04% interest rate that is assumed in the plan is lower than the level of gilts at the moment. It is a consolidated borrowing rate supplied by the council's treasury advisors or treasury team. It's not a rate that Savills have provided, but it will need to be kept under review. There isn't a separate pool of loans in the housing revenue account at Colchester. It's part of a consolidated debt position across the council, and the housing revenue account is charged a consolidated rate for the borrowing that they hold. And as I say, that rate was provided by the Treasury team and Treasury advisors. We did say last night that it is something that will need to be kept under review. There is an expectation that rates will come down in the coming months and years, and we will need to review it every 6 months as part of the commitment to do a review twice a year of the HRA business plan going forward, which is considerably more frequent than has been carried out in the past. And that's one of the things that we will need to keep under review and consider at every iteration of the plan.
Thank you very much. I think that's very factual and belt and braces. I'd like to ask you 2 questions. So the first one is, around release of the model. Now, with whatever confidentiality undertakings are necessary, let's not talk about that now. I would be happy to have that done. I'd like it to be done in a way that worked for the board. I'd like us to be trusting those who are going to have the closest look at this, but members with an interest, William, like yourself, I have no issue personally. Just one of the issue. So the question of principle is, and I know you've agreed to share this, are you prepared to see us share this, as I say, not necessarily on the screen, but in as a model? And are you able to do that?
As we said last night, that is unprecedented. It's not something that's normally done or that we've done elsewhere. It's not a decision for Savills to take. So, you know, as part of the arrangement and the contract with yourselves, with Colchester, for this piece of work, we will provide the model to officers and have provided the model to officers. It is for the council to determine, you know, how they want to use that model and what they want to do with it. It's not for us at Savills to say who it should and shouldn't be shared with. All we can say is we have offered, because it is a very complex financial model, and with the best will in the world, it's not going to mean a lot to people who don't have advanced Excel skills and some detailed financial and accounting knowledge, that actually a better way of sharing it might be to do it through the briefing session that we suggested, where we would be able to add value to demonstrating the model and taking people through it, to explain it to you know, the wider audience, so that those that don't have detailed accounting knowledge and Excel skills would still be able to get the benefit of some understanding. And that offer still stands, but it's for the council to decide, you know, whether they share the model ultimately.
Thank you. So I don't want to get William into the conversation about how, why, when, who's in the room, if you'll bear with me, but the principle is we will share it. So we'll sort out how, what and when later. So my second question, Julia, for you is really about, and I go back to this all of the time, which is we get lost in Colchester. Well, what a terrible thing to have happen. So when you, having looked at and taken this model and this approach as experts, I think well regarded by me and by most of those who deal with you, across 40 odd local authorities or more. Now, when you look at that work and compare that and what you're seeing here in Colchester, was there anything, I'd expect you in your duty to tell us, is there anything that would be a material concern for you about the business plan and the approach to it and the paper that we took through scrutiny, took through those workshops and brought to Cabinet for decision? So on that comparative basis, is there any reservations significant enough that you would want to flag?
On a comparative basis, no, I have no reservations. I think the process that's been followed has been very inclusive. It has had a very wide project team with a variety of areas of consultation carried out with various groups and parties throughout. The assumptions that are in there and the financial information that's been provided is consistent with the information that we get from other clients, and the responses and the provision of information and the detail has been, you know, exemplary throughout the process. So I don't have any concerns about the financial model or the business plan that's been presented to you this evening.
Thank you. And the one word I'm going to pick out of that is exemplary, because we're right to be self-critical sometimes. And William, I want to say to you directly, because you've said it to me and you're right, sometimes we have not been on the standard or where we want to be, but that is, in my view, and I'm hearing it from colleagues, not the case with this plan. And I'll come to you for a final word before I go back to William.
Thank you, Leader. I would have to agree that the process, I think, has been very, very robust, and what I have seen. So I don't have immediate concerns either, and I would say it's my duty to say the Section 151 if I did. I haven't been involved in the detail, but I have been briefed quite extensively about the process that's been gone through, and I feel very comfortable, and I did say so at the time. My point I'd like to make, though, Leader, is around the depreciation point. Councillor Sunnex, I do appreciate you have concerns, and I have not ignored your concerns. So I did ask Internal Audit to do a thorough review of the depreciation and how we do it. they don't have the skill set, but I do have somebody coming in who is an external independent consultant who's going to do some work for us on the HRA. And I will ask him, I've got a session with him next week. He hasn't started yet, he starts on Monday. He is very well known in the sector, Sav know him and speak highly of Adrian. So I'm going to ask Adrian to do a piece of work and I will bring it back to G&A. So to give you and me comfort that we are doing the right thing on depreciation. I do realise that members are nervous about what's in the accounts because you haven't had an audit opinion for the last few years. But I was told that in the past, we've always had a clean audit opinion on the HRA, and that includes the way we've treated depreciation, and we have not changed our approach to depreciation, and we do it in the standard of local government. So every other local authority does it exactly the same way, as Julia said. So we are following what is a common practice, but I will ask for a review of depreciation and bring it back.
Thank you. Martin, you're right. William, before we close this stage, before we go back to our own conversation, I hope you'll have heard both some assurance and robustness of approach. We aren't any different to you. We want this to be something we sign off with confidence. That's why the last 2 years or more have been increasingly focused on getting quality embedded in here, in my view. But back to you, William.
Thank you, Chair, for agreeing to disclose the model. And thank you, Anna, for initiating the depreciation review. It really is important. I will, if I may, we're talking slightly across purposes and it's technical. I'll do a 2-page paper, if I may, highlighting exactly why I think it looks wrong. And it's the scale of spending we've been doing over the last few years that has brought things out of line. The scrutiny panel did send a message saying how much they supported and appreciate the model, the business plan. That was voted on by 4 people, with 3 Conservative councillors voting against. And we do feel that although there's obviously been an extensive consultation process, we haven't really been consulted. We had a workshop that we thought was too short and unsatisfactory, and we had only a week to look at it, and we got the answers to my questions just 4 hours before the meeting. And after waiting 2 years, we felt that was very short. Sorry to repeat that again. The business of using a blended rate and then passing the responsibility, it's interesting to hear Savills talking. It's clear they don't want to take responsibility for everything. They don't take responsibility for the interest rate. And they've gone and used the blended rate when we're going out into the market to borrow new money. When you borrow new money, you can't play, just because you've borrowed cheaply in the past, you can't borrow new money cheaply. It's really just wrong. It's against Treasury Green Book, against SIPFA rules and everything. I'll shut up there, Chair, but just to say that I think it would be terribly wise to postpone approving this plan until it's been properly scrutinised.
William, with respect, and I do mean that, you haven't listened to anything that's just been said to you about the robustness of this compared to good practice elsewhere, as attested to by independent advice. But I hope we might settle on the fact that that should have given you, and will give anybody listening, a significant measure of confidence in what's been not a moment's work. It's been many months of intense work, which is involved a cross-party board along the way and a cross-party conversation. And I spoke to members, I attended those workshops, I heard different views from different people, to be fair. Let's not make this tribal. Let's agree that it's absolutely crucial that we do all we can for those in need of housing. This is the best judgment we can make at this time. Go to Julie now, because we actually are getting a bit too deep into this, and stop at that and let's take our business through. Thank you for your time and attention, and I hope that's been helpful to Paul and anybody listening. So on that basis, Julie, let's go back to the beginning and walk through what we have in front of us. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Leader. I think I'd like to start by thanking the Scrutiny Committee who gave a really robust challenge in their deliberations last night. And it is an important function, and there was no intention of disrespect, and I'm sorry if people felt that. This has had an unprecedented level of engagement. We've talked already about the members' workshop that we had, I think, 3 months ago. There's been liaison and consultation with tenants. It's been to leadership board, and we've had the scrutiny, official scrutiny of it last night. So there has been engagement, but this doesn't stop here. As we've heard, there will be much more transparency and accountability going forward. And there will be 6 monthly look at this. So this isn't just we'll accept it today and it goes on a shelf. This will have to be revised going forward, because we have seen an unprecedented number of changes coming forward from national government, and we've seen consultations that are currently underway, and we will have to sort of respond to those new requirements as we go forward. So the current plan, leader, is not fit for purpose. We need to adopt a new plan. I hear what has been said in terms of the length of time that has been had to develop this, but I think that shows how much thought and work has gone into getting us to where we are today. We can't delay accepting this plan. To delay would mean we've got a plan that isn't fit for purpose, and we need to move on. Last night at the Scrutiny Committee, there was concern about the fact that the scrutiny happened the night before Cabinet, and that isn't ideal, and we need to look at that going forward to make sure that's not repeated. And there was concern expressed about various elements of the accounting and how that comes out in terms, and there was, you know, certain comments made, and some of those have been repeated here, that something's wrong, the accounting is wrong. But we've got industry leaders here that have been brought in to support us with this piece of work. As you've said, Leader, they support 40 other authorities with their HRA, and we've heard the comments that have been expressed today that this is exemplary in terms of approach. So, yeah, I mean, you know, I can go through, this is a 30-year plan, a strategy for managing Colchester's social housing stock with a detailed 5-year operational priorities. There's key challenges: rising costs, inflation, regulatory compliance, AWOB's law coming in, fire safety. Borrowing costs have increased significantly since 2001, and that's why we're having to respond to this and make this change. Rent increases have been capped in the past, and that has made it difficult for us to make the current housing revenue account business plan work. So this does take 130 million out of the plan. There is extra contingency in there. There's 4 million put into reserves, and there's 2 million on top of that in terms of contingency. So I would hope, Leader, that what we've had both tonight and at scrutiny last night was enough material that we heard and listened to, not only by our officers, Philip Sullivan, Jeff Beals, with their experience and knowledge, but also from the external rigour that Savills have given us. We should be in a position to accept this housing revenue business case tonight. Finally, Leader, I'd like to thank the officers and Savills for the work that they've put into this. I think it's an exemplary piece of work. I am reassured myself personally, I hope other Cabinet members are, and I commit and recommend the adoption of this business plan to all members.
Thank you very much indeed. Julie is our Deputy Leader. I want to go round to colleagues. So I saw Mark and Chris, and then Lee.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julia, as well. I think your answers this evening have been really helpful, and you've been part of a team that has been really effective in supporting the council. Having an independent consultant like Savills, a really well-respected player in the market, is helpful, and it's comforting, the answers that we've been getting from you. I want to thank the officers within the HRA, within the council, and within CBH. I am in a privileged position on Cabinet, but I feel that I have been briefed well on this and have had any of the challenges we've put forward answered. I think the consultation, as described by Julie, involving many different players, has been positive. I thought the workshop was quite positive that we had here, and there was mixed responses across parties. So for me, this is a key triangulation. I heard from Paul Dundas a lot of concerns, but no answers. Whereas we're giving answers here. We're reducing the overall debt, which we have agreed cross-party needed to be done. We're providing housing provision, more housing, which is absolutely what we should all agree is needed to be done. And we're ensuring standards remain at a decent level. So that triangulation is the balance that we needed to find, and we've found it here with this plan. Now, of course, we will see fluctuations in this plan. As Julie said, it needs to be reviewed and revised as we go. But that triangulation of reducing overall debt, providing housing, keeping standards at a good, decent standard is what we need. So I don't know what the Conservatives want to see. Is it less housing, less borrowing, more costs in temporary accommodation? You've got to be responsible to find a balanced position. I understand William's concerns, and some of the answers have been put forward, and we will have those two other elements of Anna's piece of work and the model being shared. So that is helpful. I must say the business plan struggled in the last sort of 5 to 10 years because of the parameters the government had put on it. Those parameters were unusable. You know, we saw the business plan take a dive. We had to stop doing a number of different things. And the way the economy and the budgets that were put through that increased interest rates, that's what's given us an even greater problem. So we are now fixing that problem. And I do believe, as I've said, that this finds the balance. And I want to thank those who've inputted into this. I've actually felt, yes, at times about a year ago, I wanted it quicker. But now we've got it. We have found the balance that we need. So thank you.
Chris.
Thank you, Chair. Having chaired Governance and Audit Committee for the last 3 years, I'm familiar with the concerns that have been raised this evening by members of the Conservative group. I was equally concerned that we didn't have audited accounts. Not all of that down to our external auditors, but most of it being the responsibility of external auditors. But I think the direction of travel with regard to external audit is a positive one. So I'm looking forward to that being the case as we move through this year and next. And I see that our Section 151 officer is nodding in agreement over that. And I know that members of the Governance and Audit Committee have been very astute and very rigorous over the last 2 to 3 years in looking very carefully and closely at the accounts of CCHL and the activity and the management of CBH, but have also been anxious that we didn't have a fully up-to-date housing revenue account that could be equally scrutinised the way in which CCHL has. So although I have some concerns and I share some of the anxieties, I think I'm reassured this evening by what I've heard from Savills, what I've heard from Anna, and also from what I'm hearing from the portfolio holder, that there will be regular reviews, that we will have the opportunity to look at how things are developing on a regular basis. And I think the important thing now is to get our HRA business plan agreed this evening, take it forward, knowing where it sits, with the reassurance that I think you've already given that the business plan can be shared somehow with all members of the authority.
Thank you. Lee and then Martin.
Thank you, Leader. And I want to echo a lot of the thanks to the officers who have been working on this, to Savills, who've been excellent throughout as an independent advisor, everyone in Philip's team who's been working hard at this, board members, tenants who've all been helping, and councillors, because we have had workshops on this. So I disagree with the fact that this hasn't had enough scrutiny over time, and you know, people from the Conservatives were complaining it's taken too long. Now they're complaining it's coming too quickly. And we have to remember the importance of housing within the council. It's one of the most important functions we do run. Some councils don't because they offloaded their stock, and I'm proud that we haven't. You saw from the report that there's over 400 families in temporary accommodation, some of them for far too long. The damage that does on children's education and health, some of it is irreparable. And we have over 2,000 families still waiting on the housing waiting list. And we probably see all the messages on social media saying, how long will I be waiting for a 3-bedroom house? And it's heartbreaking sometimes because everyone deserves a decent home. And we are trying to do that in really difficult circumstances. And we forget that we have excellent services within CBH. We have a financial inclusion team that is really, really helpful with some of our more vulnerable tenants who may sometimes struggle to pay rent. And actually, they're there to hopefully make sure they are paying the rent and we get the finances that we need for that's maintenance, keeping up important staff and so forth. And obviously buying new stock, which we need to do. And the fact that we have control of it is really important. I notice it as a councillor that not only is it more accountable, that it's closer to us as councillors, but it functions better because of that. When you compare it to the service you get from housing associations, I am so proud of the work that CBH does. You get such a better response. It's local, it's run by Colchester tenants and board members, many of whom are on this council. I think there's valid questions over the timing of scrutiny. It did seem odd when I looked at my calendar, and I feel sorry for Julie, who had a late night last night and has got another one tonight of questions. I think we can look at that. I think that is fair, and I think that it's important that all members do get involved, whether it's political or from even our same parties, to ask those vital questions. Scrutiny is absolutely vital. But again, from the Conservatives, it's dither and delay. It's, let's postpone this. It was postpone the options on the Northern Gateway around the housing there. It was let's postpone the DPD. They just can't seem to make decisions at all. If they were in power, we would be in a complete mess. So we need to get this in place. It's fantastic the officers have got this where it needs to be. And as Philip has made clear, the original HRA was not fit for purpose. We have one here that is supported by independent experts, by officers here. One person seems to be very against it, but I think we need to be in a good place forward, especially with LGR, moving forward with our housing stock for the future of our tenants.
Thank you very much, Martin, sorry, and then Jocelyn.
There's no doubt in my mind this has been through a huge amount of work with some very professionally qualified people, despite what others may infer. And I think we need to just a little reminder tonight as our role as councillors, and in fact we did this on the NEP recently, because a number of the councillors decided that the contract that we had was not fit for purpose, and some of the councillors tried to rewrite it. And whether they were skilled in that or not, I didn't. I delegated it back to the officers because that's what we employ professionals to do. Why do you go to work? Well, I go to work for the money now. I don't go for the pleasure because I'm I'm in a different place, but our public servants go to work because they're proud to serve the public. And if we sit there and denigrate that work, or we try and rewrite that work for them, or to write the policies or rewrite contracts as councillors, I would personally be quite demotivated and quite offended by that type of behaviour. And I think there's a very fine line between challenge and becoming a pseudo officer. And I just want to remind all councillors in the room and anyone listening, we need to ensure that we realise we're here for governance and signing off or directing policy. That's really what we're elected to do. We are not here as paid civil servants. David loved being a civil servant, but he's not in that role anymore. And I just need to put that in the public place because I think it's getting forgotten. I just want to put that out there. Anna, we know, is one of the most scrutinising officers we've got. I can tell you why, because she's put some work back into my in-tray for my officers from the waste team, where the numbers have been scrutinised, she's pushed it back. That's exactly what she's here to do. And then the officers have to respond to it. It's not my job to do it, I'm aware of it, but it means that when that report comes back, it's even more robust because it's had that professional lens on it. And, you know, we've got professional experts that serve 40 councils. Well, does that mean all the other councils are, in effect, are not doing things properly and not following the right policies and procedures? No, of course it doesn't. So I just want to put that out there that, William, we need to trust and respect our officers and our team, and we have got to find that fine line between challenge and writing policy or you know, making comments that may demotivate. And I just wanted to put that out there to say thank you, and I will be absolutely supporting this. Philip, Anna, Pam, and all the rest of the team that have worked on this, and Savills, I trust their professional judgment, and everyone in this room does, and I just wanted to reaffirm that in case it was ever in question. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Jocelyn.
I want to firstly put on record my thanks to, you know, everyone, Philip's team, CBH, staff and Colchester Council, Savills, you know, all the officers and also the tenants and the CBH board, all those who've been really involved in taking this project forward. I won't sort of repeat some of the arguments that colleagues have made about robustness. I agree from my perspective. I felt that scrutiny has been robust, but I think that it's been really good to see the wide range of stakeholders who've been involved, especially people such as the tenants who are at the heart of what we're doing really with housing. You know, and this new plan is so important because it needs to be sustainable, it needs to be financially sustainable, and that's what we've got with the, you know, this new plan going forward. And I'm pleased to see that it's looking at the challenges that are coming at us. You know, Julie mentioned AOAB's law. It's, you know, we've got new regulatory, new standards to deal with. I'm also pleased to see sort of measures in place moving forward for things like the EPC standard to be at Band C by, I think, 2030. It's really good to see that we're, you know, looking to the sustainability of our properties, and that's really important. And lastly, I'd like to say that I think we're really lucky at Colchester to have CBH and the expertise that we've got to draw upon. In my sort of day job, I support older people, and sometimes that's around housing issues, and so you come across people, different parts of the country, so I get a bit of an insight into different experiences and the way in which different local authorities handle things or have delegated or devolved those responsibilities out. And from that, I can see that, you know, our tenants are lucky that we've got the model in place in Colchester. And so I, again, just finally like to thank all those who've been involved in this process. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you very much. Anything else from colleagues? No, in which case I think we've given this really good test. We need to acknowledge the, I'll go back to you, Julie, to move the recommendations at the close, but we need to acknowledge the recommendations from the scrutiny panel. which I'll just read out, that when setting the calendar of future committee meeting dates, we seek to allow more time to scrutiny panel meetings and the cabinet meetings which follow them, and we've agreed, we accept that, don't we? Secondly, that they commend the housing revenue account business plan to cabinet, as it will restore the housing revenue account to a sustainable position and will provide 235, it says here, additional homes, which is no small, well, that's a huge business, frankly. Just think of the thousands that are affected by homelessness or the risk of homelessness. So I'm assuming from all our conversations, and I know how thoughtful each of you have been, not just in scrutiny with colleagues, but in the last months around this, and we are content on that, and I'll go to you, Julie, to close.
Thanks very much. I think we've got had some really good contributions from members of the Cabinet on this report, and I thank you for the comments made. I think I'd like to go to the recommendation, which is to improve the revised Housing Revenue Account Business Plan 2025 to 2055.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Philip included, of course, and the team. Thank you very much indeed. Right. That's a huge item, isn't it? Worth a pause, right? Lots of money, lots of commitment, a big impact on the life of many people. So well done, everybody. And we'll be back to this, won't we, again soon?
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months' time, which is an assurance, I hope, to everybody. Right, item 8.1, I think, is next. And this is Waste Neighbourhood Services and Leisure, Councillor Martin Goss. Martin, refurbishment, Castle Play Equipment.
So this is something that will affect many residents' lives for the better. This will be awarding the tender for up to £600,000 to the supplier that went through the tender process. And there's been an awful amount of work done on Castle Park. It's one of the most well-used parks in Colchester. I know it's used by grandparents and parents, great-grandparents, carers, staff. So it is well used, but it is coming to end of life. It was last refurbished in 2012, when we were all much younger. And it is becoming end of life in the next 2 years. If we do nothing, it will close. So in 2024, there was a lot of work done. There was a lot of public consultation done asking for information from the public, and over 3,000 submissions were put in. So it's a really good response, more than the local plan, I think. And therefore, this obviously has animated the public. So with all of the feedback that we've got, we have gone out to tender. And the one thing I will say about this play park is it's going to be one to be proud of, but it will also be the most accessible in Colchester. It will be more accessible. I'm afraid Peter Dutch won't like me for saying this, but it will be even more accessible than the one in Stanway, which is the most accessible in Colchester. This will be the most accessible, allowing people in wheelchairs to go on swings, roundabouts, etc., and dealing with neurodivergency, etc., etc. So we have tried to make this in fact, the word is inclusive. This is going to be the most inclusive play area in Colchester. So something we can be proud of, and we can really push with our residents. And this, I think, is a project where we've shown we've listened to the public. We've taken on board what the public have said, and I don't think there can be any accusations we haven't done a thorough job on this, given the length of time this has taken to get here. So I will go back to the recommendation in a minute. One question that did come up was about fencing, because this is a large play area that's open. Only area that's really fenced off is the small area with the sandpit, and the sandpit gets abused because you get people keep dropping glass or feces in it, so we have to keep clearing it. So I have checked with Mel Rundle via text. She's not working tonight, but as ever, being a top public servant that's proud to work in this city, she's come back and said she doesn't think the fencing is included, but she will double check. But we don't think it's included, and fencing would be tens of thousands of pounds for an area that size. I think if you took Burgolt Road play area, which is in my area, when we looked at that, and I think the fencing for that was over 10 grand just for that small area. And of course, prices will have gone up significantly. So fencing for that area would be tens of thousands of pounds, and would start spending that budget when I would rather see people on accessible equipment, you know, and making sure that we offer everybody in Colchester the ability to use that play park. So happy to take any questions, but I think I've given you a damn good run through of the paper, written by a civil servant.
Julie.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating, the level of engagement that has taken place. It just goes to show that more people are interested in play than they are the local plan, which is remarkable, actually. And you know, it's a fantastic facility. It's a fantastic facility now. It's going to be an even better facility going forward. It really is the jewel in our crown, Castle Park. And there is a lot of enjoyment that all families are able to use that equipment. And as you say, it's great to see disability-friendly equipment is being installed there. Safety, safeguarding is, you know, something we need to take very seriously. I did bring up about the fencing, really, from my own perspective, not being able to run anywhere near as fast as my 4-year-old. And Pam will know how difficult this is too. Running after small children is not easy. You know, you do sort of take your heart in your mouth sometimes when they dart off. So, yeah, I hear what you say about fencing, but, you know, safety and safeguarding children uppermost in our minds and must be at all times. I think, you know, as we move forward in terms of public health and getting young people much more active, I think free play is vital to that. I am glad to see there's going to be a range of equipment there that will meet all the children's needs, whether that's toddlers or right up to teenagers. So that's really good, because we know that there's a huge drop-off in physical activity around the time when children are leaving school, and we need to address that as much as we can. So well done, Martin. I look forward to seeing it in all its glory and trying it out. And you can help me run around after my 4-year-old.
Thank you. Jocelyn.
Thanks, Leader, and thanks, Martin, for talking us through that. Really pleased, like others have said, to see the level of engagement from residents in the consultation. I think that's a testament to how popular Castle Park is and how important play areas are. You know, the inclusive equipment, that is so important, so pleased to see that. And, you know, Martin, you brought up earlier sort of idea of longevity and things. I mean, I'm so old, I've got photos of my kids on the play equipment before this current park. And probably that equipment, I doubt, really was sort of thought about in the sort of terms of inclusivity. So really pleased to see how we've moved forward. That is just so important, so great. And also, you know, echo what Julie said about health and well-being, that's important. But, you know, I'm reminded, actually, I remember back when the current facilities were quite new, and sort of friends coming up with their kids, and they were just so impressed at coming to Colchester and Park and Castle and seeing this new equipment. It just really put Colchester in such a positive light. You know, I think it sort of adds as well to the importance of local economy. It draws people into the city centre. You know, we know that people come here from far and wide, from a region and further afield. So I think it's a really important investment, you know, not just, you know, for our residents, but for others too. So I'm just really pleased to see this and look forward to see this. I won't, well, at the moment, I'm not going to have to be running around after small children, maybe in a few years, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Such a positive story. Everybody wants to speak, but I'm going to ask everybody to think whether they really can add something fresh. And while you think about that, I'll go to Pam.
Oh, I hope I can, Leader, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to pick up on, you know, how much I, as Head of Play Service, appreciate Martin's comments about trusting officers and for giving us the freedom in this particular case to be creative and imaginative, and I think we've seen the results. I just thought all Cabinet members would be really interested to know how much enjoyment and satisfaction this has given to officers who, as you know, Martin, probably more than anyone, have been through some difficult times. And I have personally spoken to those officers who said it was so wonderful to have the opportunity on a Saturday morning and other days to meet with residents who have engaged so wholeheartedly and enthusiastically. So thank you.
Anybody else who feels the need to speak? I am Lee.
You obviously you can feel your tea waiting for you at home.
It's in the microwave, please.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, this is very exciting. I mean, I do remember the Helter Skelter from a long time ago, Jocelyn, back in the day, the red one as well, socialist Helter Skelter. But this is exciting. It's
other political parties are available.
Well, quite. But I think we are looking to the future with it being much more inclusive. Times have changed a lot, and this will open it up for a lot of families moving forward. What would be good to know are timelines, and just making sure that we have really strong comms on this of obviously this park will close from then until then. And I think some designs of what it will look like to keep people happy, because similar to the people's bins not being collected, they'll get just as angry at their favourite play park not being open. So that would be good to know.
Thank you. I'll ask Martin to pick up any other points at the same time. So CGI or not and timetable, but go first of all to Mark.
I just wanted to have my say as well. Well done, Martin. This is really good. Officers have done a brilliant job. Great contributions from the public. So in 15 seconds, we've listened to the public. Naysayers out there, nag, and rubbish us. We've done a good job here listening to the public. We've listened on accessibility and inclusivity, seen and unseen, as you talked about disabilities, and we're delivering a bloody brilliant play park. So thank you.
Anybody else or anything else? If not, we'll go on, Chris, go for it.
Now, I think everything's just about being said. I was just going to repeat. I think it's absolutely fantastic that the jewel in the crown of Colchester Castle Park will have an inclusive and accessible play park. I know I've spent many an enjoyable hour there, even though I don't live locally to the park, with all three of my children over the years, and they've thoroughly enjoyed their time there, and I'm sure that generations to come will do so as well. Well done to everyone concerned.
We'll have a small plaque with the words M. Goss did this. Martin, would you address timing and CGI and how we're going to handle the comms thing?
Yes, so the design is obviously done because we would have had designs in to be judged and etc. as part of the tender, but obviously we can publish that. Timelines will come from the team delivering it. So David Carter, I believe, is overseeing it, but of course the delivery of the upgraded play areas across Colchester is actually being overseen by Patricia. And in fact, we have a project manager appointed who is the same project manager that's dealing with the Weir at the moment. So, and she's very, very good. So we've got a good team wrapped around this. So I'll make sure that we publish the timeline once it's agreed, because obviously we've got to agree that with the supplier that we're appointing, and we'll make sure the comms team is all over this. And our comms team is good. Our comms team knows what it's doing. It's quite seasoned. It even deals quite sarcastically with some of the absolute nonsense that gets written on. So, and they get paid to do it. I mean, crikey, what a job that must be. That must be ultra satisfaction. I think that's my retirement job when I give up this. At the moment, you get it for free. So, so we'll do that. We'll wrap all that around it, and we will make this an absolutely amazing project. And what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to suddenly start looking at all the project plans as a project manager and asking them why they've not got this task on the plan or that task, because that ain't my job, and I hate it when people do it to mine. That's why they only get it on the back of a fact packet. Anyway, enough about that. Let's move on. Recommended decision is to approve the
I'd like to go Julie. Sorry,
oh, sorry.
Julie first. Yeah. And Andrew. Okay,
I was just going to say, Mark had reminded me when he said we've listened to the public. a previous cabinet meeting, I was here when David Grocott came, and he's got a son Angus with disabilities, and he rightly picked us up on the provision of new play equipment in Highwoods Country Park and how inaccessible it was for children with disabilities. So when we do have the grand opening of this new play equipment, it would be nice to invite David to bring Angus along to demonstrate that we heard what he said and we've actually done something about it.
Yeah, and I've met David separately last year with Angus, and we had a good session of about 2 hours up at the Highwoods Country Park on a Saturday morning with Mel, etc. And you know, he's kept in touch. He has been very busy, I think, with family and work, so he's not had as much time to input as he'd have liked across Colchester, but he's available, and we'll make sure we do that, because, you know, to be fair, we are a listening council, and I'm a listening cabinet member. So
That's good to hear. Right.
now, Andrew, we want to listen to you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I wouldn't normally do this, but I'd like to make a suggestion to change the recommendation, because I think there's something missing from it. So at the end, where it says installation of a new children's playground at Castle Park, and it should say by the portfolio holder for waste, neighbourhood services and leisure in consultation with the head of greening, street care and safety. Otherwise, the recommendation doesn't quite read right. Sorry, just a
Thank you. I agree. Martin, you can tell
And
me.
there we are, our civil servants doing a great job again.
Okay. Call him a civil servant. He won't want like that. He's a local. Right. So insults to one side. Moving on back to the subject. Right. So recommendation made. Are we content? Yeah. Agreed. That's great. All right. Thank you. That's fine. Okay. Chris, the next item is Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Annual Review Letter. Page 85 of your pack for those who are working their way through it.
Thank you, Chair. Not a lot to see here, but I just draw your Cabinet's attention to the fact that there were 2 complaints that were upheld, which is a reduction from the 5 previous municipal year. The details of the upheld complaints are published, and there is a link in the paper with all the detail, but there is an overview of the 2 issues. One was housing related, the other one was related to antisocial behaviour. My concern when I've looked at this with officers is, what have we learned from it, what have we implemented? So I'll be reviewing that over the coming months to ensure that we have.
In all of this, we have to have a proportion. We are doing so much better than many. It's an imperfect world. We will occasionally get things wrong or not as right as we would want. So thank you very much, Chris. And that application of kind of oversight in a practical way, making sure colleagues are picked up on things is what they would want and expect. It's what we expect as well. Any other comments from colleagues? Okay, Chris, move the recommendation then. Well, I guess you've done it, haven't you? So we are informed of the annual review letter. Noted. Okay, thank you very much. And Chris, you have the next item too. Do you want to take that through?
Thank you. Yeah, so the next item is Member Development Group Annual Report, and I've had an initial meeting with Richard Clifford to discuss how we organise this going forward. I've seen what's happened in terms of detail of member development over the last municipal year. Details that I've seen of how many people attended, what the attendance was like. I think in general, we need to take account of the fact that some councillors have significant work commitments that may preclude them attending member development, or other personal commitments as well that get in the way. But generally speaking, most members are participating in quite a significant way in member briefings and member development. We need to be mindful of the fact that some of those development opportunities are in fact requirements of members, and remind members of their responsibilities to do so. I know there's one coming up in particular with regard to safeguarding, that all members should have, if they don't have that opportunity, to be safeguarded or to be properly appraised of safeguarding requirements in another role outside of the council. And I will be chairing the development committee as it moves forward.
Thank you very much indeed, Chris. Any remarks from colleagues? Please, Jocelyn.
I'll keep it brief, Leader. No, just pleased to see progress made in member development. You know, like I'm sure some of other colleagues here this evening, you know, I have sort of regular training I have to do as part of my job, had to do some this week. It's just so important to ensure that we continue to maintain skills and take on new knowledge. So I'm very supportive of this work in helping support members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mark and then Andrea.
Thank you. I think I'm quite a good boy and attend most of the briefings, and I think they are really excellent. I think we get a good range. So I want to thank Richard and the team. I'm always grateful of the work the Democratic Services team do, and led by an inclusive, decent leader in Richard, who's with us frequently doing a good job. I wanted to actually pull out one service in particular, and I know Andrea's speaking next. The planning service have offered an excellent range of briefings throughout the year, helping to explain things. People like Simon Cairns have led some really informative briefings, so I just wanted to pay a particular thanks to that team.
Thank you, Andrea.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Spot on. Thank you for that. I think the planning briefings are excellent. Every year, every time they're offered, I think, oh, I don't need to do that. I'm at it all day long, and then I go and I learn new things. They are very, very good briefings. It's been something that's been discussed with some of the team and also other councillors, which is it's highly important that planning receive training, because it changes constantly and it is complicated, but we don't have any statutory or compulsory training for the local plan, which sets the policy for planning. It seems ironic, plus local plan is complicated. It's taken me years to get my head around certain things, and I don't know how you make that proposal, but I don't want to make life difficult for other councillors or for officers, but I do think it's something we need to consider, because I think it's an important area that's at the moment probably not supported in the same capacity. We do have those officers that can do it for us, and you look at this morning, we're on a joint committee, but we're having to go back and do training. I think it's relevant, and there's new stuff some of the stuff in the NPPF on, for instance, congestion and measuring significance, that's about 8 months old, and you can't expect councillors to know those sort of things without having it pointed out to them, I think.
Thank you. That's very well said. Pam, would you offer a view on this?
Well, Andrew and I are nodding at each other here. I think we're both of a similar mind that it's, and Andrew will correct me if I'm wrong, but it's within our gift to decide whether additional training, and I say ours collectively as officers and members, but I totally understand your point, Andrea. Setting that strategic context actually then facilitates better decision making at planning level. So Andrea and I'll take it away with your agreement and come up with some thoughts for you, Andrea and colleagues.
Martin.
So when I was chair of local plan, this exact point came up and we did address it. We have had previous briefings as part of previous years' delivery of the schedule, and it seems to have dropped off. So I think Karen Syra did put some slides together, and it was done as a sort of training briefing, not just for the committee members, but more widely, I think, because I think it's quite important that all councillors understand the local plan, because it affects every part of this city and borough. So if we look back in the archives, we should find that, and Karen would certainly have that. So it's something we can resurrect, but fully agree.
Thank you. It's a great point. And, I was struck this morning, this is a TCB joint committee, as you said, but it was just that reminder of case law and fact that that the officers giving us at that briefing were talking about the degree and volume of change. You read something, does it always stick? Policy is changing. This is not a political point, it's just a reality. This government is doing its best, like it or not, agree with it or not, to shake up a great deal. And a lot of that affects planning, housing, planning, local plan, all of that. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there are very few of us who are up to speed with this, very few of us, if any. So, yeah, thank you, great point, and we'll take that away. Right, and we're almost at the tail, but the tail's always important. So, Richard, the next item is progression of petitions. We are agreed? I'll beg your pardon, yes, I signed it off, thank you.
Do you want me just to come back very quickly?
Go on then, Chris, go for it.
So, I just wanted to say that, you know, along with Richard Clifford organising everything, all the officers who put their time into doing this. I mean, in the report, there is a brief summary of the amount of money that goes into, and it's very, very minimal because we are using officers and local government officers, not civil servants, to provide appropriate training, briefing, and learning for members. And every one of us is always, every day, on a learning cycle. And so we need to remember that. None of us know everything, and things move on, things change. So we need to be open to learning, and I hope that all of us do that. I know that I've always tried to get as many members as I could involved in financial training, but there are only a small handful of members who actually get along and want to come along and see what happens with finances. And the same thing will happen with other areas of what we do as well. There'll be those who are really keen on planning and plan, but not so keen on finances or vice versa. Yet all 51 of us have to make a decision about the budget. So it's essential that we all have a grounding in all of the activities that the council undertakes. And I just recommend for note the paper in front of us.
Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Sorry, Chris, to have gone to the close. That's very well said. And you have now earned extra brownie points with Anna, in particular, for acknowledgement. All right. Okay, Richard, now, can we go to the next item? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yep, this is just the standard report on the progressive responses of Have Your Say speakers, and it shows that they've all been dealt with and there's nothing outstanding, so I have nothing to add.
Thank you very much indeed. Not quite. We got part B, and it's going to be a very, very long session. Okay, it won't be. It won't be.
Chair, can I just remind you, you don't need to go into
I
private
know.
session
No.
if you're just going to agree the minutes.
Look, you spoiled
save
my
Councillor
cliffhanger.
Goss's.
You spoiled my cliffhanger. It's agreement of the minutes, which I know you've all studiously read, so are we content?
Agreed.
Agreed.
In which case, yes, it is done. Thank you all very much indeed. Very productive evening. Very important decisions made.